Hey, 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 and hey, Julia, where are you right now?
Hi, Terry. I am in Melbourne.
Oh, what's the weather like over there at the moment? Is it better than here in Perth?
It's actually very nice and sunny, but very, very chilly.
Oh, well, at least you have got sunshine. And I am so excited about this chat that I'm about to have with you because, there's people I know very close and dear to my heart that I would love, I won't mention any names, but I would love to hear this podcast because you are a lady of so many attributes, and your heart in naturopathic, natural, homeopathic, aromatherapy, and even therapeutic massage with all your linguistic degree that you have. And oh my gosh, when I call myself a linguistic, because I am so much about the power of words, and obviously you are too, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So, one of the questions that is really burning on my lips to ask you is that, obviously becoming a naturopath, that's a really very respected profession. And you're obviously helping people a lot in that very, very natural way. And, then of course the linguistics. Which one came first, the chicken or the egg? Did you go into linguistics first or did you go into naturopathic?
It was the linguistics. So straight after school, after high school, I went to the university to finish 5 years. It took me to finish that degree, and it was amazing. I didn't do it with the purpose.
5-year degree. Wow, in linguistics.
Yeah,
Amazing.
full time. Yeah, full time. So it took me 5 years, and I didn't go in there with a view to be a healer. Yeah, I really, really love the language. I love the literature, and I just wanted to master that. Um,
Wow.
so I studied other languages, like
Mm.
I can speak French. I know a bit of Spanish. So I kind of, and that helped me to broaden my horizons in terms of how I see the world, how I treat people. And that came very,
Mm.
very handy later in life when I became a naturopath and started working one on one with people in groups. So it's really, really helpful.
Yeah, it triggers a bit of a story in me, and maybe I have said it in one of my other podcasts actually, because many, many years ago, I mean, I haven't done a degree in linguistics like you, and I would like to ask you, as someone who has done 5 years, why is linguistic language so important, and what does it have the power to do?
It is a very, very good question. And recently, I've been going back to that question and how important it is. And what I know is that mastering that. So, you know how everything is simplified in our life now? We use emojis, we use acronyms like LOL. It's just, yeah, so it's all simplified. The art is simplified. And that simplifies our experience in life. You know, it makes it very, very boring. That's the word that I
I
want to
mean, what's
say.
life if it's so easy, right? It's got to.
Because
Oh my
we're
goodness.
missing the depth. For
Yeah.
example, if you ask a person, there was this research that I came about recently, and people were asked, I don't know, there was like hundreds of people who participated, and they were asked top 3 or 5 adjectives to describe their feelings. And it was like happy, sad, bad this sort of thing. That was the three top ones. And what about like exhilarated and all the beautiful adjectives that we've got, you know,
Mm,
like petrified instead of scared. And there are different nuances different
yeah.
shades of that feeling, and we're losing that. So the better we can describe what we're going through, the
Yeah.
better we can adapt, and the better we can make other people understand us. And
Yeah.
if it's about relationship, love us better because they can relate and understand us better. So that's
Yeah,
what.
and plus you have also, my goodness, got a certification in hypnosis. And what actually came to my mind just then is, if we can paint words so they come to life in the minds of others, we know that, for example, when we're taking people into a trance, right, we're going into the Lee kind of words, which is like softly, deeply, soundly, peacefully. And there's something about these Lee words, lovingly. And yet, if everyone knew how to, create words to create their mood, gosh, what a place we'd be in. And, you know, the importance of it. Why is it so important that if we can understand, like you and I can, what linguistic language can do, what's that going to do for someone's life to know and learn that?
Yes, because words are spells. We cast spells, every day, right? And it is so important to know that when you have relationship, when you have children, right? That you basically hypnotize yourself and others all the time with words.
Yes. In fact, I often say to people, like my mother had a real issue about me studying to be a clinical hypnotherapist, because in her mind, it was like, you were engaging in something outside of Christ, and, you were delving into something that, puts too much control into your hands. And I went around and I scrutinized every school possible before I came up with Milton Erickson's model, because he was the man who put everything into the hands of the listener and the person. And, I said to Mum, this is not really about hypnosis, is in us putting others into hypnosis. This is about us unhypnotizing people from that trance that they are in, with their habits, with their food, with, the way that they are in life. And, if we can help them shift, I mean, gosh, that's got to be powerful. So,
I love that, Terry. Yes, it's taken them out of their hypnosis that's
yeah,
created by social media, by, whatever, TV, doctors and themselves. Yeah, parents.
yeah. I know we haven't met in person, but I am sure that we will meet in person one day. I'm very sure about that. And I mean, I was born in Melbourne, and actually my husband spent a lot of time also over there. He studied chiropractic way back when. He says that was in the days when they had a lot of philosophy. So I think he would really have a good conversation with you around some of the model of the world and how you are seeing the world of today, and especially in light of, the naturopathic industry, and, some of these elements that really got you disgruntled. So you became, I guess, like, I mean, disgruntled may not be the right word, but I guess, not happy, not aligned with where a lot of these industries are going. So what do you feel is the lost magic inside the original reason that you wanted to become? Because people like you, like Ian, would say you're the real version of a naturopath. His late wife was actually also a naturopath. So, I'm sure if she was alive today, besides I wouldn't be married to him, but she would probably agree with you 100%. So tell us about what you've seen happen that's really taking away from the naturopathy industry that can stand to really, be something that goes against your belief system with a lot of your clients and a lot of the passion and in what your belief is.
Yes, this is big, Terry. You just opened a big can of worms. And I think the word would be disillusioned. As a new naturopath, years ago when I graduated, I had these big ideas, about what I can do when I practice. And then it was all kind of pushed down because of the regulation. For example, like the language that I can use to put it out there on my website, I can't use the word treat, I can't use this, can't use that. So there is these
Wow.
limitations. And then what we have this industry nowadays, so we talk about pharmaceuticals, and many naturopaths, they're all against that because it doesn't get to the root cause and it just masks the symptoms and doesn't treat anything, and people just don't feel the pain or whatever, emotional or physical, depending on the medication, and that's not really living. So, and then we have these emerging natural pharmaceuticals that invaded the industry. I think I'm not against that. There's time and place for that, but the whole method, the whole school of naturopathy is going down the same direction, as I see it, as medical schools that are run by pharmaceutical companies. So we're kind of going down that pathway too. So what people expect from a naturopath, because that's how it's advertised out there nowadays, is that they come and I'm supposed to give something but natural, not the medication, but something of herbal nature, or vitamins, minerals, and that would alleviate the symptoms of that person. And again, there is not much of a time space to dig deeper and talk, because the mindset of people nowadays is just to come and get it fixed, but so that it's natural and it doesn't, I don't know, hit the liver that much. And,
Yeah,
like
absolutely. So it's almost like you saw the writing on the wall.
that.
It's as if you went in and your passion, I know this because I've spoken to you and I've got quite deep into conversation with you, is really holistic and quite deeply spiritual as well. So, when you're kind of bringing in all of this, I guess, junk, I'm not even going to swear, because what Ian would say about it, that's just losing the true, that true clean ability to really assist people, to help them to heal themselves. Because I guess if we say, as natural people that enjoy the natural elements of assisting people with, what comes for free, as you say in your own words, then they are given the gift by someone like you to have the ability and the resources to heal their own body, so that their nervous system can heal itself. And it sounds to me, just from many of the talks that we have had, that it's the industry is being watered down. So it's like the strength of something that's really, really powerful is suddenly kind of being watered down. So, I love the fact that, because obviously, because I've worked in clinic with my husband, a lot of his clients, they're great believers in the real deal naturopaths, the real, the ones that were the beginning, the grassroots, and what all that was about. And, I guess you had, and I'm diverting a little bit here, but you had a spiritual awakening. there was a spiritual awakening that you had through a meditation that led you in to this path. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, I think you're talking about the experience that I had before I embarked on the naturopathic learning,
Yes,
right? So is it that
exactly.
one? Yes.
Yes.
So, and that's when I still had these idealistic views of our profession, and I still I love it. I'm a registered naturopath, and I'm gonna fight for this as long as I live,
You go,
right?
girl.
Um,
Yes.
with in regards to that experience that I had, so that was through my own pain, through my own health journey that I had. I started, treating seriously natural health when my first son was born. So that's when it all started, because we all want, as parents, we all want the best for our children, so that there is no poison in their bloodstream. So there is, like, it's all clean, organic foods, and, as much as we can afford that. So that's when it started. I researched all that. And then we wanted another child, and it wouldn't happen. I had a few miscarriages, and one of them was at quite an advanced stage. So we ended up
It's
with
very
a
hard.
white coffin. And as terrible as it was, I managed to look at it as an experience to learn from, right? The pain was immense, right? And I
No, I can imagine.
don't have any family here in Australia. So I come from Russia, and all my family is there. It was just me, my husband, and our older son. So I pulled myself together, because I had a child already that needed me, that depended on me, that couldn't, do many things without me. So I did all that. But what it gave me is the strength, and it gave me so many insights into what life is all about, into the life force, into not blaming the industry. And that's when the disillusionment, the further disillusionment with the conventional medical system came, because I was thrown from one doctor to another, and no one wanted to investigate anything. They sent me to have 3 or 4 miscarriages, 4, I think, to investigate, because you're young, it's okay, just keep trying,
Mm,
you know. I'm like, really?
yeah.
You
But
don't
when
want to
it
do
gets to the
anything?
stage of, I mean, having, I know, because I've seen that happen in our own family. Ian's daughter had miscarriages, and it was immensely painful for her. And it was always before the 12-week stage, though, and it doesn't take away the pain. But you say that you also obviously went to the point where obviously there was a white coffin. So obviously it was quite a, that must have been huge.
Mm,
And I was listening to a podcast actually the other day, and it is a doctor who's really renowned on the happy mind. And apparently, he actually did one podcast prior about the loss of his son. And I'm not sure. I'm going to go and listen to that, because I was very fascinated by the way that he put forward how he lost his son. Obviously, his son was of age, and because he mentioned dying on the operating table.
mm,
And he says that he passed through this life and onto his journey that he was called upon in the spiritual realm. And I thought, wow, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't say he died, or, this happened, or this is incredible loss, but it was almost like he'd come into himself and really grasped this through linguistics, and saying he's gone on to that journey. And I couldn't believe it. Like, I've never heard such a long silence on a podcast, but the guy interviewing him said if you could go back to that operating table where your son died, would you change it? Would you want him? Would you want to bring him back? And there was nothing. There was this huge long pause, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking, what on earth? Like, did they stop the podcast? Was it too much? Like, did it go too deep? And he finally came up with, I wouldn't, because that would take away from the natural evolution of the journey that he was called upon. And he did touch on his life as an empath and these things. And I thought, wow, I was in deep, deep admiration. I couldn't imagine what it would be like, though, Julia, to,
And I can relate to that. I can
yeah,
totally relate to what you just said, because I was thinking about, when you were saying about that question, I'm like, I do not want not to have gone through that, because
okay,
it made me a totally different person, and it made the life of my nearest and dearest, I think, better eventually. As painful, as terrible as that experience was in that time, in that moment, I did end up having another child, and so I have two sons. But that's when I started really, really diving into meditation, into breathing, into breath work, and even further down the rabbit hole of nutrition and spirituality, esoteric science, right? So what is soul, what is spirit, how our organs and tissues are affected by our thoughts, things like that. Because I could have gone and fought with doctors and, demanded, all the tests and things done, and wasting my energy, and because it's really wasting your breath when you speak
yeah, it's true.
that.
It is so true.
And I thought there should be another way. It shouldn't be that hard. We're designed to do certain things in life. I have a female body, so I have all the things. So, and if I want it, it may happen, it may not. So I gave it out there. So it was no attachment to the final result. And I was ready to experience life as it comes, but through all the experience of meditation and breath work and mindfulness and all these words that are out there and that we see on the Instagram, but we never really get to do it.
Yeah, and what a dream come true for someone out there that really, really, really is in need of that spiritual awakening, and that holistic element of having a real naturopath that has studied so deeply on all of these topics. And I'd love to hear about, because I'm sure that, especially your listeners, they would want to know about your spiritual awakening, right, Julia? So, can you describe to your listeners, and perhaps people that are sitting and they're really in search of someone who can help them holistically, where they are in their life, what happened to you in that meditation where you kind of woke up? Can you describe that?
So it wasn't one particular meditation, right? But what happened as a result is that, how people go and do plant medicine and they have hallucinations and insights. So
Yes.
I got to that stage without any substances, right? I got to the stage of seeing things, getting downloads without drugs, without plans, without anything. Sometimes, and it happens spontaneously. I can drive and see things, and it's interesting. And some of my clients say, do you read minds? Like, because I verbalize some things that they do not dare say, or, you know, and I just say it out loud, and that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's very, very spiritual. And obviously you've got a very deep spiritual gift as well. So, you know, what is your thoughts on the plant medicine? Because I know a lot of the people around my circles, they will do the ceremonials, and I know you have to be definitely involved with people that really know what they're doing with plant medicine, because I feel that it would almost be scary if you had something and then all of a sudden you're hallucinating, right? But for you, you are able to do this in such a natural way. What were you seeing and hearing and feeling when you had that natural awakening?
Because I do not have anything to compare with. I just go with the description of other people's experiences who've gone through that, and my experience, where I have never done any drugs in my life, like none, not even weed. Like I've
I
never
wish
done
I
it.
could say the same. I'm sorry, but I've
So
done the weed.
yeah, so I know I did try cigarettes for a couple of months when I was at
Oh,
uni, but that's that.
yeah. Okay.
So yes, and that's how I compare, you know, their words and my experience. And you know, you asked about my thoughts, and there is no right or wrong in this life. So we have plants available, and I use herbs in my work all the time, right? And I feel their energy. Like I never sell anything generic. It's always done individually for this particular person. And next time they come, they ask for like, oh, can you give me the same thing? But you're a different person now. You think differently
Mm,
and you had a different experience. So you probably need to tweak it a little bit. And I do tweak. So
yeah.
is it okay to have that experience with plant medicine, like ayahuasca or whatever other plants out there? There are so many plants. And ayahuasca is just a name of so many different plants there as well. Um, you know, with if you ask me and my honest opinion, because the spiritual science, the esoteric science has evolved so much, and it is still evolving. Everything is evolving. It's movement. It's constant movement, and I think we're moving to that stage in our human development where we don't really need that. It's kind of, for me, it's a bit of an outdated method of
Yeah.
working, because it does work through the physical. You know, people do feel things. You know, the mildest thing is yawning. The worst thing is vomiting for days on, right?
Oh wow, yeah,
So
that's
it
yeah. It's
depends on where
I
you're at.
seen someone doing magic mushrooms and doing that when I was about 20 years old, and back in Bali, and I thought, oh, what's wrong with that poor guy? Because he's
Mm.
Australian and everything, and I got concerned as a young woman, and I thought, what on earth has happened to him? Because he was on the ground, he was groveling everywhere and throwing up. Someone said, oh, he had magic mushrooms. I thought, well, I ain't never doing that. Not that
Yeah.
I would ever want to do that over there anyway, but no, no, sirree. So, you know, what I'm hearing is that you do offer a very individualized, tailor made service. And especially when you come to talking about from individual to individual, right? So
Yeah.
they might come in and they may have ailments, and the next time they come along, they're going to be almost like they're going to be different. So you're going to treat them, you know, at that next level. What do you think is the element that needs to bridge the gap for a lot of people between where they are now and often, like, let's just take a typical client that you may have, for example, anxious, unwell, perhaps they've tried a lot of stuff, maybe they've even turned to, you know, medication, for example, and, you know, they haven't had that kind of a success. what would you say to that person who is just, their nervous system is just shot? They're literally like a walking, talking trigger machine, right? Am I able to ask you that, by the way? Can I dig with that with you with that? With someone that's
Yeah.
in that position, what would you do for them? What would be the first thing you
How
would
you
do?
said that, yeah. So a typical client, I can't really say that I have a typical client. Like, I don't see them as typical. Like, there is some
Mm.
typical behaviors that I see
That's
as
probably
in,
what I meant. Yeah,
yeah,
typical,
in that,
the typical elements, because
yeah,
people are not their problems. This is something that
yeah,
I always say. So when I say client to individual, they're not their parts, they're not their anxiety, they're not their issues, but they're symptoms. What's the, what is the element
yeah,
that you would take them through the
yeah. And
process?
yeah, I like to be specific about what I call things,
Yeah,
and
fair
that's what
enough.
I convey to my clients as well. And what those people who have tried many things, because most often I am the last resort, right? And that's how I developed. So I think my zone of genius, we talked about that, is complex cases, complex health cases where there hasn't been any help so far, right?
Wow, yeah.
And so when they come, and the most needed thing to hear for them, I think, is that they don't have a flawed body.
No.
So what the conventional medicine makes you believe is that, you've got faulty liver, you've got faulty test results, look at the paper, all the numbers are bad, they're out of range. So, and we need to fight that. So the body never creates disease. It just never does. The body only knows health. That's what it knows. And it tries
Yeah.
to keep you alive at all costs, no matter what you put in it, whatever, I don't know, pesticides, whatever, Nurophens, how many a day you pop, it will try to balance everything out, yeah, and keep you alive at all costs, yeah. And costs will be your symptoms, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That are the costs.
I'm a great believer in that. In fact, quite often they separate the two words disease, don't they? It's like
Yes,
dis-ease. It's
yes.
more like the body is perfect. And, we were talking about inside our container, pain and the thought process of pain and how that operates more as a gift to us. So
Mm.
is pain really a bad thing in the face of someone like yourself and your practice and my practice, when we know very well that the body is perfect, and even pain is really just the GPS to say, well, you know, let's adjust, let's align, let's direct you to that, to that ultimate path. And, I love your deep sense of holistic when I went deep with you, right? So I always love getting right under what is really about this person. And I've learned a lot about you actually from this actual just what we're doing here now, such as I didn't know the grief that you had gone through with the loss of the miscarriages and what you'd been through. So I didn't know that, and also I didn't know before today, let's say, that you were such a spiritually minded person. Because, when I'm sort of, because of course this podcast is called Terry Messenger's Genius Zone, right? So it's all about bringing forward, really passionate, dedicated, and aligned people like you that are the iconics in their field, so that I can really get to the bottom of it and find out what makes this person so great. And you began out by your first answer when I went why with you was that you wanted to see people, having that happy and healthy life, which makes sense, right? Being happy and healthy. But of course, we know, you and I both knew, that wasn't the real deepest reason. And as we went deeper and deeper and deeper into this, I kind of got to discovering that you talked a lot around the life force. And when we talked about the life force, you were really speaking in terms of the breath. And I would love you to talk about that, because I feel that there's people out there, and that's what I love doing. I love to add value to them. So if they can, connect with something here that's going to help them just by listening to this, then we've blessed someone. You know what I mean? So can you really go deep into the breath work, the life force? And we all breathe, but it's the way we breathe. And maybe you can just talk us through and give us any tips on what you would say to someone out there that's got some of these symptoms, to help them.
The symptoms of what?
Well, perhaps what we discussed, like their anxiety, their nervous system needs to come into the alignment. So they're trigger happy, almost like they're just ready to be set off, and they just need to pull back. I mean, as I'm unfolding this, I'm hearing a couple of your zones of genius here already. Number one, breath work, and the other one, the being present. Maybe you can talk us through both those things.
Yeah. So when we talk about breath work, there are two aspects. There's always two aspects. And now it's such a popular modality. It's a hugely popular modality nowadays. And there is a lot of scientific research into that. Amazing papers have been released about the physiology of breathing and how we really create new chemistry within ourselves. And I'm wondering if I lost you, Terry.
No, I'm just giving you the stage. Lovely.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you the stage.
I got a bit lost. So, yes, and the physiology of breathing, and also the spiritual part of breath work, right? And it's one and the same. It cannot be separated. But for people who just come on board with that, who knew this, it's always good to start with the physiology, with something that they can link to, they can really understand, because we all have basic knowledge of anatomy and physiology from school, right? And that's how we kind of can connect. And that's why I love breath work, for connecting the spirit, the soul, and the physical. Yeah, so I talk about in connection a lot, about how important it is to be inside your body, how easy it is to live when you are inside the body, right? How easy it is to access your intuition. So there are different.
Can I just ask you something on that, if I can?
Yeah.
You said how easy it is to leave. What do you mean by that?
What do I mean by that is, our modern life is quite busy, right? It's busier than ever in the history of humanity, right? Because we have all the modern things, access to many things at a time. And it's about decision making. So what I see in my clients a lot is like they can't decide, what to do, what even therapeutic modality to choose for themselves. So they came to me, they obviously chose me, but still, even sitting in front of me, either online or in the room, they still kind of unsure. And that's, what I'm talking about, how important it is to be in the body, to access the information, so that you go with what you chose and you follow through completely without any doubts in your head. And the results are so much more powerful, rather than you doubting all throughout the process. And at the end, you have some results and you're like, I don't know, maybe it wasn't the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that a lot of people are not in their body? Like they probably don't even realize it because of stress. So they kind of like have this default system where they kind of pop in and out, if you will, and they
Mm,
might go, well, of course I'm in my body. But then they're actually in the future, like they're living in what has to be done tomorrow,
so
what
that's
has to
anxiety.
be done.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the anxiety, right? And they say the depression is where they're living in the past.
in the
They're living,
past.
what happened back here. So if you're living in your past, you're sort of depressed. If you're living in the future too much and you're, got that apprehension and you're always anticipating, it's more anxiety. So, do you feel that the breath work and the being present go hand in hand? It helps them to kind of get back into the here and now and really feel into every muscle and cell of their body. Because, I mean, let's face it, we are our best when we're present, right? Like if I was thinking about what I was going to do this afternoon, I wouldn't be having such a really highly connected
Absolutely. Yeah.
conversation with you.
And that's the easiest thing. When I ask you, Terry, to close
Mm,
your eyes, breathe in and out, and focus on the airflow under your nostrils. Yeah, just feel the air coming in and out. You cannot think of anything else. You cannot possibly start thinking
mm,
about what you need to do next. You just feel the air coming in and out of your nostrils, and that's you.
mm,
You're in the present, you're now, right? You're not living in the past, not in the future. So another thing like anxiety, depression, yes, definitely takes you out of your body. Pains, when you're in pain, you tend to jump out as well. And
yes.
the more you disregard what the body is telling you, either suppress the pain, right, with painkillers or do other things, the further away you're kind of from incarnating. Yeah. So
Mm.
it's all learning
When you
signals.
say further away from incarnating, can you please explain that to our listeners?
Further away, I mean that it's just you pulling away from that, not further away. Further away is not the right expression. Pulling away from that, you're still kind of hovering around.
Yeah, so you're really moving away from your own omnipresence, like your
Yes,
own, yeah,
yes.
yeah. I have to say, I absolutely 100% agree with you about breath work and the power of it, because let's face it, we can all breathe, right? And I know you're really big on not just giving the most incredible holistic beautiful service to your clients, but you are also big on delivering and letting people know that a lot of the magic is something that is free to them every single day. And I had an experience actually in my enlightened life, and I say my enlightened life because my journey began right back in 2006. And so really I'd come such a long way with all of the elements of training, and you would know this too, Julia, that the more you help people, the more that you're not just helping them, but you're helping yourself. And everything we do for others, we're doing for ourselves too. So it's almost like give and you shall receive. And I love this. But I had a horrendous experience with I guess my nervous system went completely out of whack when my spiritual self, which is my higher self, had a very human experience. And I received a phone call one day to say that our property that we had been renting out for a long time to trusted tenants that I knew were dodgy, but I
Mhm.
was drawing their character. and keeping them accountable. And something had happened, and there was a swap over between the two young people that were tenanting the property, where one left and then they got another partner. Well, I received a phone call one day, and this is after a loss of a family member too. So I'd lost my cousin, and whilst we were all mourning, I got this phone call. This is only going back less than 2 years ago, and they said, "Are you the owner of this property?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Are you aware that it's trashed and it's pretty much condemned?" Well, I won't go into the, incredible stressful story that we had getting it all back together again. But also, I had shifted into my dream mansion, which is like something out of Gone with the Wind. I've got this beautiful staircase, and I manifested this incredible place. It has everything that, in my mind's eye, lush greenery, beautiful parklands. Anyways, we moved in, and it was like 3 days before Christmas, going into 22. And on Christmas Day, I will never forget it. I just decided to have a complete breakdown. And I said to my sister, and remember, I'm an enlightened soul here. I have all these incredible resources. And I said to my sister, "I can't come." She goes, "You have to." And I went, "I can't. I couldn't cook. I couldn't cook my food. I had, like people have something that it's like their hair that broke the camel's back. When I went to put my turkey on, the oven didn't work. And because we'd just moved in, and so long story short, my husband, when I told him to go, I would say by any person who understands the human mind and body very well, I was having some kind of a breakdown. And I had, when you're so stressed, it's like, where do you start? And breath work was where I did. And maybe I underestimated it, but I remember breathing deeply. And I mean, obviously, it was very hard at first. I was probably taking very shallow, fast breaths, but I did this, and I really put my mind to it for, I'd say, a good solid 2 to 3 hours with a few little breaks in between. But deep breaths in through the nose. Then by the time I was getting to the end of it, I was able to really take in that breath through my nose, and then just let it all out through my mouth. And do you know what? I went Christmas night, I showed up like nothing had even happened. Completely restored. Completely restored. So breath work. And, you've even got a business called the Oxygen Revolution.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what? Just talking about that and how I mentioned that it's important to link the physiology with the higher spiritual concepts of breath work, right? So for me, for myself, when you were talking about your experience, and I did all the meditations, I did pranayamas, and it was all beautiful. But when I really, really got to that, because I'm a visual person, and I also love research, and I'm a nerd. When it got to me really, really on a deep level, the breath work, how important it is when I did the training, the proper training. And we were talking about, how that carbon dioxide, when you preserve it, it's like that little helper guy that opens the taxi door for the oxygen and helps it out and delivers it into the cell, and the cells get that oxygen and get the energy, because oxygen is energy, right? So you get the energy to live your life force, right?
Wow.
So that's the physiological level. And when you imagine that, and yes, you're in the body, when you think about all the little molecules that are doing things for you, and then there is this beautiful, even the word inspiration, there's a spirit in it. Yeah. And in many European languages, it is the same, even in the Russian language.
Okay.
There is the spirit
That's
in it.
interesting.
I don't know about languages like Asian languages, I need to ask people, and I'm
I
going
know
to do.
stress is, apparently stress is the same in other, so there's one Asian language where it's still the same word.
Yes,
Completely
interesting.
the opposite to in spirit,
Yes.
inspiration. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's out of that alignment, probably. Yes, the other side of the spectrum, but it's the same. Yeah. So, yes, and then you have that. And there is so many beautiful things you can link. And it depends on the person, what this particular person needs right now. Yeah, where
Yeah.
in his or her life they're at, and where they need that little help on which level, emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, right? Mm.
Mm. There was one other topic I really wanted to pick your brains about, a little bit dear to my heart, actually, if you don't mind. And I get that you do have experience around it, but it's in the world of people diagnosed. I mean, quite often people go through anxiety in their youth, like. I actually went through a lot of anxiety in my youth, in my childhood. I just thought I was an anxious child. Then to find out and learn that they have got ADHD. I'm not sure how much you know about ADHD, but there's, a lot of people out there that, obviously they have obviously turned to the ADHD medications. And from the natural point of view of the holistic sense, you were talking to me about this coming back to self-worth and self-love. Can you open up on that a little bit, for people that may be suffering? It doesn't necessarily have to be just ADHD, but some of those anxious symptoms where they may have turned to medication, and how in your holistic world, self-worth and self-love can really open up new doors for them.
Absolutely. So, first things first is anxiety and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is ADHD. It's different. It's slightly different kind of symptoms and signs, and medication may be similar though. I think that that label that they put on many people, especially children, right? So with that particular disorder, it's often they're very focused people. Actually, they can really focus and get results. However, it's just the modern world. As I said, we have so many things running at once, and the scrolling and the TV, that
Yeah.
all contributes, I think. And also our schooling is like, I'm not very fond of it. I can
Mm.
just say that, right? I'm not really fond of it. They
Mm.
raise, same boxed in people, right? And those ones that know that they're interested in something else, they're made to sit in the classroom and be, right?
Yes.
And that's
And
your
feel dumb,
ADHD.
feel dumb. I
Yeah.
know I was one of that. I was one of those. I was the daydreamer. I got called the daydreamer. I know
Mm.
my daughter, she begged the teachers in year 12 that she wanted to be let in to do her, so she could go straight into university. She's a very highly intelligent young lady, but
Yes, they're very
not,
intelligent.
yeah, not one of those teachers would support her. And they advised her against it. They told her she shouldn't do it. And I hear in some of her vocabulary, the reflection on that, but what that actually did to her self-worth, what that did to her, and I know what it did to me. I know I had a very poor self-esteem growing up because I struggled in school. And and yet we can be a genius within our own zone. And like you say, I can totally get what you mean by, even when it's ADHD, people do have the capacity to focus. It's just getting them aligned to what they are actually interested. And
Yes.
you know, I've heard people talk about ADHD as like the Da Vinci Code, and
Yeah.
the people like Richard Branson and Oprah Winfrey, who have, you know, got that incredible creative spirit, you
Mm.
know, that really brings us out. But imagine, Julia, I hear what you say about the school system there, and imagine for
Yeah.
yeah, imagine what it would be like, you know, because you are a NLP practitioner as well, and I mean a linguistic by degree, right? Can you imagine if they brought even the basic of NLP into the school system, where teachers, because I know I trained a lot of teachers for this reason, where you are in a classroom and you are actually speaking into their their model of the world through visual, audible, and kinesthetic. Because if you get a high visual teacher and that's all they do, there's going to be a percentage of the class that just don't quite, you know, fit into the mold or the box. But imagine if they brought personal development like that into the school system. Imagine if they allowed, I guess that's why there's Montessori schools as well, you know, kids to be creative and didn't undermine them, but actually let them come out.
Oh my God, then we'll have like fully evolved, incarnated people doing their thing in life and not wanting to be in the system.
I love that, in the system. So I love that
About that.
yeah, look, I love that I attract so many of the non-mainstream. I mean, even in the online space, you know, the people that, you know, are very similar to me, like my peers and people like yourself. We are, you know, I think we puke at the thought of just doing everything mainstream. And in that way, it's just, yeah. And, you know, I can't wait to talk about the program that you've got, because it's a very timeless program. And for those of you out there that have been listening in to this call, you probably understand really the heart and soul of where Julia comes from, and speaking from, you know, the many modalities of practice. And I will say the one thing that I didn't mention when we went deep is what I found at the real bottom of your why, which I feel needs to be said. And I don't think I'm going to do it as much justice as you, Julia, but it's about the incarnation of them coming into their spiritual awakening. But you know, everything is around that element. Can you just discuss that? Because I feel like your listeners especially are going to want to hear this.
Yes, we touched upon that a little bit about,
Mm,
the soul
we
and the
did.
spirit being within the body and operating from that point where you're in the body and you are connected and linked to the forces bigger than you, right? So some people call it God, some people call it the universal intelligence, some people call it the life force, the chi, the universal chi. There are so many words in many cultures. And I love all those words because every sound has kind of different energy to that, right? And
Yeah.
when you combine everything, it's like this big universal boom. Yeah. I can't even
Woo!
describe that. Yeah, it's like this this buzz, universal buzz. And it's always good to have perspective. There are videos on the internet where they pinpoint our like little planet and in the solar system, and the solar system is in the galaxy, and it's all that, and you're like this little tiny speck. But at the same time, I've always had this sense of connectedness, connection to everything and everyone. That's how I probably connect to my clients as well. So it's the incarnation of that timeless, spaceless within you in this physical reality. And when you are in the body, you connect to your intuition. Yeah, the decisions come easier, the relationships come easier, your work comes easier, right? We still have, because we all come with our own purpose, the connection to the purpose, right? Why do we have anxiety and depression? Because we're so out of touch with what we're here for, because if you just go to work, pay the mortgage and die, so what's the purpose? It's, I would be
Oh,
depressed too if I believed in that reality. That's very, very depressing to me.
absolutely.
So
Yeah, it
when you
is.
see
Yeah.
bigger than that, yeah, it all makes sense. Yes, we have
Mhm.
certain rules and restrictions in the physical reality. And again, even that is in the mind, but that's another conversation, right?
Mhm.
Like
We're
what
going
is
to
real?
do this again one day. Don't worry. We're going to do this
Let's do that
definitely again.
again. So
Mm,
connected, being incarnated, so your soul and
mm.
spirit in your physical body makes you access your intuition, right? Your purpose, and that's your health. Basically, that is our health. That's how we
Yeah.
get healthy. Yeah.
I love that. And, what came to my mind as you were just speaking about that, and just really that connection of we are all one and we are connected, and that real sense of omnipresence. And I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that. That why you've got, it doesn't get any bigger and better than that. In from where I come from and what I see, and I love it because it's also coding and activating people's DNA. Like when they're tapping into their higher intuition, they're tapping into all of those elements. So, it's hard to believe that we can actually have someone like you that can help us on that, on that level of nutrition, holistic health, where, energetics meets with the emotional and spiritual world, and really looks at even the practical things like bringing it into the nervous system, because I know you have such a powerful service around digestion and the gut brain and the gut health. And we didn't even touch on that today. But I just want to say, guys, if you've been listening in today, the health revolution, I think that speaks it all, and it's why I believe that this is probably the greatest name given, because it's about that whole health, the holistic system. And this is about the life force of breath work. It's about your physical body, your gut brain. This is what Julia is really assisting. Now, we didn't touch on this either because there's just so much, but in Julia's program, she's also offering the light healing, which is sun gazing, and which you do need that guidance so that you've got a professional
Can I just
person.
make a note
Yeah,
here? Not specific.
please
Yes,
go in.
thank you. Thank you so much for touching on this, because it is
Yeah.
so, so important, and I'm very, very passionate about this. It is not, I do not want to call it sun gazing, because there is a lot of sun gazing information out there on the
Mm,
internet, and some of it is not quite accurate. So
mm,
it is, let's call it, I like what you said at the start, Terry, light therapy, right?
yes.
It's about broad spectrum light that is God given, yeah, that is out there. If you go outside of your humble abode, yeah, that's what we have. Within,
Lights coming in.
yes, and within we can recreate it. It's a pricely, costly technology, but it's available, so you can recreate it inside. But what I talk about is the outside environment and how it affects your physiology, your hormones. Yeah, there is so much talk about hormones. There is so much hormone dysregulation out there in
Oh,
women,
yeah.
female health, thyroid, all this in endocrine sort of dysfunction, that's the word out there. I don't believe in that word, but it's, I'm going to use it because that's something that people can relate to, understand, because it's out there. So yes, we talk about light therapy and how important it is for our health and how we are deprived of that.
So do you actually use like natural light to do this with people, or do you use machinery?
So as I said, I do talk about how you can recreate. It's not super cheap. Yeah, it was
No.
developed for those who go in submarines, for months and months on end without sunlight. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by sunlight, I don't mean that you need to gaze at the sun, right? And different people need different approach, because some of us can't tolerate it anymore. So we need to build up that tolerance. Yeah. So, and I
Yeah.
talk about that within the program.
That's why it's so important to have someone like you that can really, take people through that. And, this is where, when you're coming into this program, the way that I see it, Julia, is that having the life force, the nervous system, digestion, and gut brain health, having the light therapy, and of course, body movement. And neither Julia and I are specific dance yoga instructors, unless you are one and I didn't know about that.
I do like
Um,
dancing, but
Me
that's my
too.
lead route.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm a body
yes,
worker though. I do body work, so I'm trained in that.
yes,
So that's how I
yes.
know the functional movement.
Yes. So part of this program Julia's got is the body movement and the body works and moving the lymph so that it detoxes. And I know that when we were having a chat beforehand, you were talking about, which I'd never heard or never thought about before, um, moving the blood in the body. Like, I've never heard it kind of mentioned like that. Like, I do body movement myself and I teach it very naturally and easily and effortlessly. But perhaps you can touch on that movement where it is detoxing and helping with the lymphs and the
Yeah,
blood
sure. Yeah,
circulation.
yeah. So, well, firstly, the movement, when you pump up your blood faster, because when you move, as opposed to sitting or lying down, it's different
Yeah.
action. I was talking more about the lymph, and that's what you mentioned, Terry. So
Yes.
it doesn't have a pump. Like the heart is the pump for the blood system, yeah, for the circulatory system. The lymph doesn't have that. So the lymph only moves when our muscles contract and relax. So that's the pump for it. Yeah. So that's why movement is important. And there are certain lymph nodes. You probably heard about that, lymph nodes.
Mm.
Yeah. They're like these stations, kind of filtration stations for the lymph, right? And sometimes we hear that people say that I have enlarged lymph nodes on the neck. So there's a lot of them on the neck. There's some of them in the groin, underarms, in the stomach, a little bit behind the knees. So there are certain stations, and we need to know about that so that we can assist in our lifestyle, because we all have different lifestyles, right? And
We
most of
do.
us have sitting, sedentary lifestyle. So doing this for ourselves with the knowledge of everything that I just mentioned, yeah, and how to incorporate that easily. That's my word for today. It should be with ease and grace. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
what life is all about. Yeah. So it's easy to implement. That's what I
Ease,
want to
flow,
teach
and
people.
grace.
Yeah.
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 Yes.
So that sort of movement,
Beautiful.
it does detoxify that. So you mentioned that, the waste from the blood. So we eat, we consume things, we breathe, it goes into the bloodstream, and then certain things get into the tissues, absorbed, and then certain things are not needed, right? And that's where the lymph comes in, right? It helps to carry the waste out of the system so that you get new stuff.
Mm.
So if we don't move, we get stagnation, right? No one wants stagnation, and that affects the brain, because now they know that
Yeah.
there is lymphatic stuff in the brain, right? So that's the brain fog. Yeah. Hello.
Wow. Yes. So there you go. So, I believe that if you want to really have that incredible, incredible overall, because you do obviously the one-on-ones. So if you're looking to actually come in and just make a huge difference to your life on this holistic level that we've been talking about through Julia's health revolution, we're going to drop the links right here so that you can contact. So Julia, you are still actually consulting one-on-one so that you can obviously take individuals through that beautiful that whole motion that you talked about, where they become a different person at every level when they see you, as well as offering a group program, which is, I believe, a 6-week program that also encapsulates the nutrition revolution, so that you can come into all of those cornerstones of your life, whether it is physical, spiritual, emotional, and for those that are even subjected, because you would have seen a lot of people with allergies. I know that the gluten people that are allergic to gluten these days, and lactose intolerance, and all of those elements just seem to be more prevalent today than what they were probably 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm really hearing a very primitive, very natural, very robust program that you're offering. So is there any last words that you would like to offer to the audience before we say goodbye?
Just wanted to say, because you touched upon nutrition, that though I am very spiritual and I do connect the spirit and the body, and I show people how to do that and get back home. However, in the physical reality that we are living in, there are certain rules, right? And we need to stick to them. So with nutrition, it is out there, right? We need to eat we have the digestive tract, it's there for a reason, yeah. So we need to put the nutrients in, right? So, and we talk about that extensively, right? And this is something that helps people to link their physical and other aspects, right? And yes, health revolution is basically based on all those milestones that we need to address, right? The breathing, nutrition, movement, light, all those things, right? Laughter,
Yeah,
which can go into the
the best
category of
medicine.
movement, right? But it's much more than that. So, yes, I love it, all of it.
I
So
love that
it's
too.
one umbrella and it's complete revamp of your life, if you want to.
Hence the health revolution. Thank you so much for your time today, Julia. And I can't wait to see you on the other side. And remember, guys, click the link so you can get into this beautiful holistic program. Bye for
Thank you
now.
so much, Terry. Thank you for your time.